Shalom and welcome to the One Pasuk podcast, where the rabbis at Congregation Avas Torah each share an insight on one particular pasuk from the parsha and reflect on each other's ideas. Rabbinic banter, I like to call it. I am Chaim Pupko, and I am joined by my dear friends and teammates, Rabbi Daniel Goldberg
Shalom.
and Rabbi Morty Jesus.
Shalom.
To sponsor a future episode of the One Pasuk podcast for a happy occasion or a yortzeit, please visit onepasukpodcast.com and click on the sponsorship link. All right, here we go. Our one pasuk for this week's parsha, Parshas Behaalosecha, comes from chapter 10, verse 29, Perek Yud, pasuk Chavtes, as Bnei Israel are about to depart Har Sinai to begin their journey to the land of Canaan that was promised them. Vayomer Moshe lechovav ben Reuel hamidyani chosein Moshe. Moshe turns to his father-in-law, Chovav ben Reuel, as he's called here in this pasuk. Nosim anachnu el hamakom asher amar Hashem oso etein lachem. We are now traveling to the land that Hashem has said He will be giving to you, to us. L'cha itanu, come with us, vehitavnu lach, and we will be generous with you. Ki Hashem diber tov al Yisrael, for Hashem has promised to be generous with the people of Israel. And so Moshe is inviting his father-in-law to come with them to the land of Israel, and he resists. And Yisrael resists. We don't really know what happens in the end, but let's see what the rabbis have to say about this pasuk. Actually, before we dive in, I know we spoke about Shavuos on the last episode, but I'm really curious to hear from Rabbi Jesus how the Sfardim incorporate milchiks into their chag.
We always had the first meal was always dairy, which was nice because you go to sleep after staying up the whole night. And then you get a chance to have breakfast instead of like a massive, heavy meat meal.
I never thought of that, by the way. Having milchiks for lunch on the first day, if you're staying up all night,
So
it's like
much
having
easier.
milchiks for breakfast.
Yeah, it's the best.
Never thought of that.
Yeah, we always had that. That was our minhag.
Just one meal,
Just one meal.
and the rest fleishiks.
Oh, yeah. It's holiday.
Mm-hmm.
What's your mother's best dairy dish?
Syrian dairy food is absolutely incredible. It's exquisite. So it's hard to say like, oh, that's the best. It's kind of like comes all together. You guys get glimpses of it at a Zami bris.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like a few very popular foods that he actually serves, like calzones. It's like those little noodles with like those cheese stuffed.
Is that a relative of calzones?
Is that
It's
sambusa?
very different. No. Sambusak is like those little. It's like a dish. It has like these egg noodles.
It's like
with, like,
pierogies. Oh gosh, I sound so Ashkenazi. None of this can go in. None of this can hit the air.
Anyway, that's like a real. My mom makes that pretty epic. But there's like sambusa calzones. There's mini pizzas. There's kusajibin.
What is that?
Kusajibin is you take a squash and you hollow it out, and you take the hollowed out part and you turn it into like a kind of like a quiche type with like cheese and egg, and spanach is really good. So it's like hard dough with spinach. There's some really good Syrian foods.
Yeah, but you could just be making this up as you go along, and we'd be none the wiser.
My listeners in the Ben Orei Sephardic Center will hold me accountable instantaneously.
Made to look a fool.
No, I'm serious. Like Syrian dairy food, befrat, is
Yeah.
like really good.
Yeah.
All right, so let's dive into our pasuk. Rabbis, what do we got?
So we're introduced to a new name for Yisro here, Chovav, which connotes a few different things. So the first, I'd say the most obvious dimension to Chovav is Chaviv, is beloved. And that's a beautiful name. And perhaps this is the name that Yisro adopts when he converts to Judaism. He becomes Chovav, which is such a beautiful name. Rav Hirsch sees in this name another dimension, and that is the word chov or chayav, an obligation. And he actually connects the two meanings of beloved and a sense of obligation. And if I am understanding Rav Hirsch correctly, I think he's saying that once Yisro felt the love from Hashem, then it created a chov, an obligation to then reciprocate and to commit himself. He felt an obligation. So that connection between love and obligation I thought was very interesting. And then I started reflecting on Yisro's initial name and the idea of yeser, of excess, of extra, and the idea of transitioning from a life of yeser to chov was very attractive to me. It was like something that I thought was very thought-provoking. The idea that Yisro was this seeker and was looking for a life of fulfillment and satisfaction and what was interesting and what was new, and there was a sense of excess that you might attribute to Yisro's previous life and the way we understand it. And the idea of moving from that to chov, to obligation, and to the obligation that both emanates from and responds to love. I just thought that was such an interesting way to think about his journey, which was new and novel to me. So I thought I'd try that.
It's a beautiful idea. I remember hearing this sort of idea explaining the beauty of marriage, where a couple meets each other, develops a relationship, and it's a relationship that's, totally volitional. They're not bound to each other. They're dating. What it means to get married is to then put obligation around that relationship and say, yes, I want to continue to grow this relationship, and I'm binding myself to it. That's why we call it erusin.
I just heard a terrific rabbi speak under a chuppah, actually.
We're cutting this out.
Just about that. Why are we? Editor, keep this in and keep in the comment to keep it in, because you spoke very beautifully under a chuppah exactly about that idea, faithfulness. Yeah, which was so beautiful.
Yeah, that idea was about how our faith is more about how we demonstrate that faith and faithfulness. This idea that I'm thinking about, we say erusin, right? That we bind ourselves. So you're right. We're creating that platform by which to continue to serve each other. But it's also, again, it's a model for the relationship we have with the Ribono Shel Olam. As the pasuk says, "Ve'erastich li le'olam." Ve'erastich, I will bind myself. And that's exactly what Yisro's doing. He's taking something that he found, he came to on his own, and transforming it into an obligation, right? It's like you commit, you go all in.
Yeah. And when you're young, you have no obligations.
Right.
And as you go on the journey of life, you bind yourself and you limit your options in so many ways. You choose a partner, you choose a path professionally, then you bind yourself to family. And in all these ways, we're doing something that is maybe counterintuitive, because we think that we want more options. We think we want to have more freedoms. But the truth is that the more you bind yourself in life and you narrow your focus and you narrow your range of options, the more meaning you find. And, it comes with challenges, but that's where the reward is also. That's where the bracha is.
Yeah.
What caught my attention was a comment at the end of Rashi. Rashi says, Nosim anachnu. So as Rabbi Pupko mentioned, this is picking up just as Am Yisrael is about to journey towards Eretz Canaan, the Holy Land that they've been promised. And this is a journey of a few days. And unfortunately, there's a series of events that is about to transpire that's going to cause this journey to be one of nearly 40 years. And now the journey is about to begin. But unbeknownst to Moshe, he uses the term Nosim anachnu. We are going to travel together. Essentially, he incorporates his own being as someone who's going to eventually arrive in the land of Israel. And as she wonders, why is Moshe including his name together with the rest of Am Yisrael? And says Rashi something so sad. The decree that Moshe will ultimately be left out of Israel has not yet been set down. Ukisavud shehu nichnas. And for that reason, he's of the opinion that at this point he's going in, which of course he was until the sin that takes place that causes him not to have that privilege. But it was a very sad thought reading that Rashi. Here Moshe is with such enthusiasm conveying to the masses that let's journey forth, let's get to this promised land, a place in which of course Moshe Rabbeinu recognizes has unlimited spiritual opportunities that you don't necessarily have outside of Eretz Yisrael. And yet he doesn't get there. What it brought to mind is that so often in life, we have ideas of what we want to accomplish. And we tell ourselves, we'll get there one day. I'm going to learn this. I'm going to know that. I'm going to start going to Minyan. I'm going to start consistently mastering different sections of Torah that interest me. And then we tell ourselves, oh, we can't join the Daf Yomi just now. So when they start a new cycle, and when this happens, or when my kids get married, or when my kids grow up, or whatever it may be that is holding us back from taking that leap from getting involved, is tragic. Because if it doesn't allow us to do it right here, right now, there's no telling of where we'll ultimately end up. And here Moshe was enthusiastically speaking of this opportunity to get into the land of Israel. But because of other reasons, he wasn't allowed that opportunity. And the lesson's clear. We have to seize the moment. People are intelligent, accomplished people, and they're thinkers. And they all have these ideas in their head of a better version of themselves, be it spiritually, be it physically, whatever. They want to learn a language. They want to visit certain places. They want to educate themselves about certain subjects of Torah. And then they tell themselves, yeah, of course, there's going to be a time and a place where I'll eventually get to do that. But right now, my schedule's too busy. I can't include that in my schedule. It's not feasible for me. But who's to say you'll ever get to it? And if it's that important to you, do it now. Experience it right here. Matai.
Yeah. The idea that you're reflecting, I think, is very relevant for our generation because, again, we're exposed to so much. We're all over the place. And if we come across something important, something that we're inspired by, it's important to pause and give it attention. Even if you don't take that opportunity, like, okay, I'm going to start a new shiur right now. If you just spend at least 10 minutes more thinking about it and exploring it, as opposed to just a thought and then just, I'll do it later. Even if you don't dive into it now, but you give it a little bit more time, I would imagine it increases your chances of finding that which you really want to commit to.
I love that. That's great because it creates a sense of responsibility in your mind as opposed to it just being this fleeting thought and this dream that doesn't get adequate space in your head in terms of turning it over. So instead of doing the daf, ladies and gentlemen, think about doing the daf.
Yeah. I was captured by how Moshe describes when he's trying to convince Yisro to stay with them 2 psukim later, where Moshe says to Yisro, Vahisa lanu le'einayim. You will be eyes for us. So I think it's a fascinating metaphor because we already know that Hashem is leading the Jewish people through the desert. So if he's talking about Yisro being some kind of scout for them, that's completely unnecessary. And so when we look at the concept of the ayin, of the eye, and what it means as a metaphor in Tanakh and in Chazal, oftentimes it's obviously used for the concept of perspective, that somebody who has an ayin tov is somebody who's generous. They're generous because they have a certain perspective towards what they have, what others have. And so just a simple observation, Moshe wants Yisro to stay because of his perspective, that he has a unique perspective on life and on the world. Here we have an entire nation that came to their Judaism, as it were, through a very certain destined path that Hashem carved out for them. And here you have Yisro as the paradigm of someone who comes to their Judaism, comes to their faith from an entirely different path. And Moshe immediately senses that that's a value. That's a value. Somebody who believes the same things we believe, but got to it from a different place, clearly has a different perspective and can perhaps offer ideas and teachings and leadership that Moshe himself can offer. And Moshe has good reason to think this. Yisro comes to Har Sinai, and he sees how Moshe is spiritually leading the people. And he adjusts how Moshe spiritually leads the people. And so Moshe naturally says, I need Yisro as part of my cabinet, and I want the Jewish people to have him. Which is why it's so fascinating that we ultimately don't know from Pashup Pshat whether Yisro stayed or not. But the lesson that Moshe provides, I think, is so important. And me as a leader, it's one of my central values, that I have my perspective, and I think my perspective is good some of the time, but I benefit enormously from the perspective of others. And I'm smarter. We're all smarter when we have more people collaborating. It's an idea I come back to all the time, but I think that's exactly what Moshe is driving at here.
And I think an adjacent idea that I find very frequently relevant in my own life, and I think resonates with the words V'hayisa le'einayim, is the idea of V'hayisa lanu le'einayim, is that sometimes you're having an experience and someone else is there who is maybe not typically around, and you start thinking, how is this person perceiving this moment.
Yeah.
So we'll have even something as simple as a visitor that maybe I know from another context at Mincha Maariv during the week. And suddenly I become more acutely aware of the things that are maybe a little idiosyncratic to Avas Torah. And it's like, I wonder what this person is, I'm not articulating that in my mind explicitly, but I'm thinking like, how are they perceiving this?
Yeah.
And suddenly you start seeing it differently.
Yeah.
Also. So just the presence of someone else can be so enriching, even without them saying anything, because you become more keenly aware of what you're experiencing.
Yeah. Yeah. That totally resonates. 100%.
מחצית הלילה עוברת בשדותינו רוח שרה ערבה אילמת תרכין אז ראש על אשר שחר לא שר אל ארץ צבי אל פש שדותיה אל הכרמל והמדבר אל עם אשר לא יחשב שאת בניו לא יפקיר לשר אל ארץ צבי שדמעותיה נושרות על שדה חמניות שהיא צפונה וששונה הם שתי בערב בבגד